Hello, pod smashers of the internet, and welcome to another episode of
80-bit pod smash,
where gaming goes to grab a beer. We are your hosts.
Penguin and Termite. I am Penguin.
I am Termite, and we are a weekly video game podcast smashing together ideas that you care about over video games.
That's right. And tonight we are continuing our much longer than anticipated standing series on the best video games of all time list as compiled by Wikipedia. So if this is the first episode of this that you're joining in on and are like, why Wikipedia? We'll explain why Wikipedia as kind of our intro, but we'll get to that later. In the meantime, we will probably be covering some of the mid-2000s in this episode. So the list is broken down year by year, the best games that are considered the best of all time in those years. So we'll be starting in 2005 and getting as far as we can in the 2000s. So we'll get into more of that and more of the details as to what this episode looks like with our main topic. But in the meantime, we are where gaming goes to grab a beer. So what are you drinking tonight?
I had asked my wife to run out when she was running a different errand to go stop by somewhere and find something fun I could have on the podcast. And she knows that I love Aslan. And so she found an Aslan beer at what we call the Big Giant, which is the bigger grocery store giant food that's like a little farther away from our house than we normally go. But so I'm drinking an Aslan Beer Company's Power Moves IPA. It is 5.5% alcohol. And it doesn't really give much more of an explanation than that. It's just an IPA, and it tastes like a really good IPA. That's the typical notes that you would get. The very hop-forward, bold, it's a hazy color. So it doesn't say it's a hazy IPA, but it looks like one, and it kind of tastes and feels like one. It's got a pretty good medium body to it, and not too bitter, but unless you hate IPAs, then you'ble probably spit it up. But yeah, it doesn't have a lot of like crazy, unique something. Like it does not. It's not fruit or citrus forward. It's not like pineapple-y. It's just a regular, run-of-the-mill, good quality IPA. It's perfect for warmer weathers. It's been in the 80s the last couple of days, so it hits that summer feel, which is kind of why I asked for an IPA sour or goes, and here I am. So yeah, Aslan's, what is it called again? Power Moves. Go check it out. Yep.
Nice. I am drinking the last of my Total Wine beers for this round. Hopefully I'll get an opportunity to get some more. I am going away this weekend with some friends and we're going to be down in Asheville. So I've been thinking about possibly just bringing a growler with me and filling up a growler.
Definitely do that.
And hopefully have some left over to finish off on the podcast or something. But anyways,
you can always bring cans back with you.
That's true. I could also do that. Tonight, I am drinking a beer from the Virginia Beer Company down in Williamsburg.
Ooh.
And it is called Saving Daylight. And it is a citrus wheat ale brewed with grapefruit and orange peels. I'll read the back here. We balanced grapefruit and orange peels with whole cone Centennial hops for a crisp, flavorful, and easy drinking take on the American wheat ale. I have a question for you. How do you feel about grapefruit?
I hate grapefruit.
Like just the actual fruit?
Pretty much anything that has grapefruit in it, around it, all about it, it's not good. Anywhere, I just don't like.
You don't like grapefruit? Okay. Then
sorbet,
you would not like
ice cream.
Yeah,
beer.
You would absolutely not like it. Well, and there's two kinds of flavor. There's the actual grapefruit, like the flavor of actual grapefruit, which I totally understand is polarizing because I hated grapefruit for forever. And then there's like the grapefruit artificial flavor. This is much closer to the former. Like this has that really tart. And I'm really racking my brain trying to figure out how I would describe what grapefruit actually tastes like, because I feel like it's not the same kind of taste as like a lemon in regards to that like sharp sour. It's like a different kind of sour, but it's not bitter either. I wouldn't describe it bitter like you would hops.
Okay.
So I don't really know, but all I can say is if you've had grapefruit before, you know what this beer tastes like. It is very, like, they say it like balanced with orange peels. I'm like, no, this is grapefruit all the way.
It's just straight up.
It's very much grapefruity, but like not overwhelmingly so. It's the main flavor I get from this beer. Otherwise, it's a wheat ale. It kind of tastes like, it's very much like drinking like a Bud Light or something with maybe not Bud Light. What I'm trying to think of, like just a wheat ale. Yeah, like a wheat ale. It's very light. It's very kind of sweet and crisp, but it just has a very strong grapefruit aftertaste as you as it goes down. It's good. I like it.
All right.
I can
that
dig
sounds
it.
good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Sweet.
It's not good for you because you don't like grapefruit.
Right.
You don't have to.
Well,
pretend
I understand
like it
people would appreciate the flavor, and it sounds
Okay,
from what you
there you
described
go.
as something you would enjoy. I would not buy it personally, but
Yeah.
Yep.
Cool. All right. Cheers, then, mates.
Hey, cheers. We can't tank, but we're almost there.
Cheers. So cool. We both know what we want to talk about to fill this time before we go into our main segments. We're actually going to fill it with a segment we haven't done in a while, and it's What Are You Plurning? But we're really going to emphasize the game that we're both plurning that just came out. So why don't you tell me what else you're playing, and then we'll ease into the big one.
Okay. On the side, I am still working my way through Persona 5. I'm 30 hours in, and I think I'm in July now, and I've gone through, I don't know,
Very
three big palaces now, and the game is fantastic. It's still absolutely amazing. Japanese RPG, turn-based combat. It's hitting all of my nostalgia feels with the golden age of RPGs, but also it's got a great story. So I'm loving Persona 5 still. I have been playing Turok 2 on the live streams, and that's probably an 8 to 10 hour total game. And I've played like 6, so I'm getting about the last third of the game to get through it. I want 100% it, but I won't get all the trophies because there's a difficulty one that I don't want to do, so I'll skip that. Mm-hmm. And on my Vita, as I always have my Vita around, I am currently playing the cyberpunk bartender game called Valhalla, and it's absolutely incredible. It's a very dialogue-heavy game, lots of reading what people say. As the main character, you are a bartender in a cyberpunk world where you have a rotation of customers coming through that talk about things like current events that you can cross-reference with articles to read in the game from the quote bartender's bedroom. Like it's like the sequence between each day, and you live out each day. Customers come in, you make them drinks, and you learn about the world that they're in and character interactions. It's fantastic and absolutely great to relax to. And another game that came out this past week that I just started picking up and playing again, my all-time favorite photography game, new Pokemon Snap. I've been dabbling with that on the Switch, and it is also incredibly relaxing, super de-stress, totally chill game, rail shooters, quote unquote. You're not shooting anything but pictures, and my son's 5.
A rail shooter.
It is, yeah. My son's 5 years old, and he loves watching it. He's obsessed with it too, so he's like watching it and getting into it and seeing all the new Pokemon and the ups and downs of the excitement with the frustration of missing something by like a second, but then like knowing you can go back and replay the levels to get the better pictures of the different Pokemon, different situations. The progression's great. I could go into a full long review about what's good about that, but we don't have time. So we're gonna talk about the big game that we're both playing, but I'll let you talk about your side games, and then we'll jump into the big one.
Cool. Yep. Cool. So my side games, I just wrapped up the platinum on Persona 5 Strikers within the last week or so.
Yeah. Cheers to that.
So
Platinums
good.
are awesome.
And Persona 5 is so good, and I'm so sold on that franchise, specifically Persona 5, but I'm willing to see what they do with Persona 6 and probably get it if it reviews well. But Persona 5 is just great. I love how they keep expanding on that franchise in really interesting ways. Supposedly there's a rumor that there's a Persona 5 fighting game coming out, so we'll see about that. But in the meantime, yeah, Strikers was great. So I highly recommend it to anyone and everyone. In addition to that, now I am also working through the platinum on Ratchet and Clank in preparation for the new game coming out this June. So that's exciting and that's fun. It's really fun getting back into that game. It's also one I can play in front of my kid. And then I have been dabbling a little bit in... I cracked open the seal, so to speak, with Blizzard and played Diablo with some friends a few months back. But since I had downloaded the Blizzard app again, I went ahead and downloaded Overwatch. Again, I've spent not a single dime on Blizzard, but they do have my download numbers, so to speak. So I've been dabbling with a little bit of Overwatch, just killing time, just seeing what the game's been like when I have like a few minutes to kill during the workday. And then... yeah, that's about it in regards to all that. Obviously, I'm still working through Luigi's Mansion 3 as well with my son. But the big one that we've been both playing, that we both got, it's brand new, hot off the presses. We just started playing it this weekend. I know it's 2 weeks after the fact, but we are here to offer up our thoughts on Returnal.
Yeah.
The first PS5 exclusive since Demon's Souls, since the launch roundup, Demon's Souls, Sackboy, etc. And
well, I mean, Sackboy was cross-platform. You can get that on PS4.
Was it? Oh, okay. Then yeah, definitely the first cross-platform game since non-cross-platform.
Exclusive,
yep. Absolutely exclusive since. Demon Souls, and it is a rip-roaring good time. We will talk a little bit about some of the kind of controversies other players are experiencing and just some of the bad design choices, but the game has made a really great first impression. I am dying to play it. In fact, I will be like tapping my foot, itching to get back to this game and get my fix of Returnal. It is
while we're recording the show.
Yeah, it is both of our first roguelike games.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah,
it really like came out at a good time. I can't say it came out at a good time. It came out and it captured both of our attention, and you and I have not played a game that's brand new together.
Mm-hmm.
I know like Last of Us Part 2 took you away from Persona 5, but you started it later than I did. And then Ghost of Tsushima, you jumped in it before I had a chance to get there. And so we were kind of out of sync. And I know we played Doom Eternal together, and we played Final Fantasy VII Remake, but that was over a year ago. So this is like the first time our planets have lined up to play Returnal at the same time, but also it's our first roguelite game. Mm-hmm. So here we are. Now we're going to talk about it. So like,
yeah, gosh.
What is this game? What is Returnal?
Yeah, Returnal is it's a third-person shooter, bullet hell roguelite, heavily inspired by Metroid Prime, or like games like Metroid Prime, games like Metroid. Mm-hmm. It's got a lot of that Metroidvania, oh, look, I can probably go there when I unlock something later in the game. However, the difference is because it's a roguelike, you're going to be going back to the beginning of the game quite frequently. So you're going to be passing over those areas that you couldn't access. But it's really, really good. It's got, the game's vibe, like atmosphere, is very much like one of those like sci-fi horror games or movies like Alien or Prometheus or Predator.
Yep.
And it's got a very interesting, it reminds me so much of something that Remedy would have done.
Yeah, it's got a control feel for sure.
Vibes, yeah. There's these really interesting story segments that occur inside of like a house, like a human house that's randomly on this alien planet. Not randomly, but it's like from the character's past. And those scenes, those elements are like PT. It's got like the changing house where something like you go through a hallway and then you go back through the other hallway and something has changed and it's freaky. It's really, really well done. But yeah, it's basically a survival horror game in a lot of ways, except it's got roguelite elements. And if you don't know what roguelite is or roguelike is, it's based off of a game that came out in the 80s called Rogue, where when you died, you'd start back at the beginning. It was an arcade game. You'd start back at the beginning and the world would procedurally generate around you. So it would be different. It wouldn't be the same as when you started. So, but you lost all your progress. So that's kind of the crux behind roguelikes. Roguelikes are games like Rogue, where you lose all your progress when you die, and you have to start over, procedurally generate a new map, basically, to try to get to the end and try to get as far as you can in each run. This game is not roguelike, though. It is roguelite, and the difference there is that you keep some progress. You have some progress. So some of your things that you unlock, you keep. But a lot of it you lose when you die. A lot of your upgrades, weapons, and resources you completely lose every time you die. So very punishing, very challenging, but it seems like we're both into it. We're both here for it. So tell me your thoughts.
At least for now. Like, I'm less than 10 hours in, so I think I'm like five or so hours in. So I still have rose-colored glasses. It's like new and fresh. I've played roguelites in the past, and I did not get into them because I didn't really have expectations set. I didn't even know that was a genre. I mean, I'm talking like years ago, maybe like before the birth of Isaac, way back when the indie games were sort of starting to blossom on consoles back in the PS3 era. And so I didn't really know what to expect. I was expecting something like Legend of Zelda or, like a very linear progressive type of game, and then I realized when I died I started all the way at the beginning instead of just a respawn point, and I was like, this is not fun, I don't like this, and I bounced. And ever since then I learned about the genre. We've talked about it on the show. It's not my thing. I hate dying. I hate wasting my time. I hate redoing stuff. I am a father of 2 with a full-time job, and we do this podcast among other things in my life that keep me busy. My game time needs to be fulfilling, and I need to be achieving and unlocking stuff all the time in order for me to feel like I'm getting the best bang for my buck. This game kind of broke all of those traditions, and I can't say in the long term it'll stick, but as for now, having died a bunch of times and like redoing things and getting frustrated, and we'll get into like how we approach that in a minute, the differences between the two of us, it is compelling. I'm dying to get back into it. I want to play it right now as well.
You beat the first boss. Congratulations. You did. Thanks. You made progress. You did a thing.
Yeah, I did a thing.
You don't have to fight him ever again if you don't want to.
Yay, I never will. And
you might find yourself with the motivation to do so, but you'll do it on your terms, not the game's terms. Which is nice.
Yeah. Well, there's no trophy to get him again, so I don't have to worry about it. And so it's like I would not expect to like this game. I would not expect to get back into it, but it's made by Housemarque, and I've played Resogun as a launch title for PS4, and it plays very much like it actually has there's a little Easter egg in the spawn in the ship that crashes at the very beginning of the game. There's a little pixelated green astronaut figurine on the cockpit that I took a screenshot of, and that is from Resogun. I thought that was a kind of a cool shout out to their past.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah. But they've made Dead Nation, Alienation, Nex Machina, and other games in the past. Like we might do a developer deep dive on Housemarque.
Yeah, that'd be a good one to do.
It's like bullet hell arcade, fast paced stuff, and this game continues
and this
that
game's no
tradition.
exception. Yeah.
But the atmosphere is extremely like appealing to me because I absolutely adore Metroid Prime, and of course, female protagonist in a spacesuit. It's like identical, and then the map of this game, Returnal, matches kind of how the map in Metroid looks and feels, with the verticality and like jumping around and stuff and like unlocking weapons that allows you to go into different areas, as you mentioned. So overall, the game it's 60 frames per second. It's 4K. It's gorgeous. It's absolutely stunning. There's no clipping. It's very polished. It's not buggy, except for some things we'll talk about too. And so it's very pleasing to the eye and to the feel. It uses the DualSense in an awesome, cool way. Which
it's definitely one of the first games that I felt has taken advantage of what next gen means. This is really the first next gen game as far as I'm concerned, because Demon Souls was visually next gen, but Demon Souls was just once again a revamp of an existing game from 2009 or whatever. So it's by no means would I ever describe Demon Souls as a next gen game, even though it looks next gen. Returnal is, because it uses the 3D audio, it uses the DualSense, it uses the haptic feedback as part of the design, it uses the fast loading times, it uses the graphical ability. It looks and feels next gen, and it comes into the way that the bosses are designed too. Though you've only experienced the one, I will say boss number 3 is what I would consider probably the first next gen boss. It's crazy. I won't say anything because I don't want to spoil anything for you, but holy crap, boss 3! I was like, my mouth was agape the entire fight. I'm like, God, this is next gen. This is what this console is capable of. I love it. So it was pretty cool. So yeah, that it's not without its criticisms though right now. In fact, it's getting review bombed for a couple of different reasons. A lot of people didn't. This is arguably the first AAA roguelike game, roguelite or roguelite, and it is. So for that reason, a lot of it's getting exposure because of its high budget, because of how it was marketed, and because of its status as a PlayStation 5 exclusive. A lot more people are getting exposed to this genre that have never been exposed to it before. And I think much like the Souls franchises were when they first kind of started entering the zeitgeist, a lot of people are taken aback by the difficulty and unforgiving nature of it. And so they're review bombing it and blah, 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 blah. Apparently,
the internet's going to internet.
Yeah. There are some valid criticisms with the game design, though. In particular, one sticking point for a lot of people right now is it does not have any save functionality of any kind or any suspend functionality. The developers justified this decision by saying it is to prevent people from save scumming, to negate some of the difficult aspects of it. But
which I would do immediately if I could say, like, I would immediately save scum. I would not even try to hide that.
The problem is what they try to get you to do is if you are in the middle of a run, because the game has long runs. It's not just like a quick boom, you're at the end. Like, no, it's a long game. So the problem is, so they even say in the game's UI, in order to suspend your game, you are to put the console into rest mode. That's a really terrible way of dealing with that problem, because there's lots of things that will take your game, that will close your game while your console's in rest mode. Crashes happen pretty frequently still on the PlayStation 5 for a lot of people. Game updates, which is something that recently happened. The developers
to me today.
Themselves.
I lost my 2-hour run because of a patch.
I lost a run as well because they released a patch. And so there's a lot of criticism that they're rightly getting. And some people are saying, well, that's roguelikes. The problem with that argument is Hades has a save feature. The Binding of Isaac has a save feature. Risk of Rain, I think, has a save feature. Like, they all these, it's not uncommon for roguelikes to have save features, and you either put up with the save scumming because the 1% of the player base that's actually going to do it, or you find a way to like, I think Hades has like a quick save feature where it's very, very aggressive in the way that it creates and overwrites the save file to kind of limit what you can do with save scumming. So anyways, yeah, there's ways around it that Housemarque, they need to implement something. And they said they've heard the player feedback. They don't have anything to announce at this time, was the most recent statement. The game's only been out for like 3 days, but they are apparently they're open to releasing something, and they need to do it because it's so bad that they rely on the rest. Like, I've got a suspended game right now, and I'm like, I really hope nothing happens between now and when I get back to it.
Yeah, and yesterday over dinner, our power blipped, which never happens. Our power never blips. And I was like, well, if I'd have had a run, which I didn't, I would have lost it.
Yep,
and actually, I think I did have a run, but it was a really short one, so it was inconsequential, but gone. And that's it. Like, I have to start over. And it's frustrating, and it's kind of tense.
It is. It's just it's a really poor way of handling it, and it's even more poor the way that they've sort of, tried to justify, like, double down on the decision, whereas it's just like, no, you guys need to do something about this. So,
and the reason why it stings so much is because runs can last hour and a half to 3 hours. Especially as you get farther in the game, you got to keep going farther. And so it wouldn't be a big deal if the game was built around really short runs that would only last 15 to 20 minutes. But because this is a big AAA game, it's huge and sprawling, and you have to go across many worlds, like that's why it stings so hard when you lose your save over something like a patch that you didn't plan for.
Right, exactly. And so I saw someone on Reddit put it where it's like, I shouldn't be punished unless I actually die. If I die, I deserve to start over the beginning. That's the genre. But if I didn't die, like, if it's just my power went out, like, I shouldn't be punished for that. So I totally agree. It sucks. There's also the fact that there are, like, the game, not everybody's having the most smooth. Both you and I didn't encounter a crash until several hours into the game, several biomes in. But some other players were experiencing crashes and bugs and glitches a lot more frequently when the game came out. It did not have the smoothest launch. A lot of that apparently was traced back to the DLC, like the pre-order suits, like skins that you can get. But still, there were some stability issues that were causing problems. So
10 hours in, I haven't seen a single hiccup except for like some frame rate drops.
But I feel bad for the people who do. Like, I mean, I can understand why people would be frustrated who are having those stability issues because, again, the nature of the game means you could be killing it. You could be the most skilled player in the world and lose a run to a crash. That sucks. So it's definitely the biggest forefront. Again, part of the growing pains of this game, I think, are due to the fact that it is a brand new genre for a lot of people, for a lot of audiences at large. But there are still some design decisions they could have mitigated to ease that a little bit. So, anyways, that is Housemarque's Returnal, I think. I don't think there's
we have a whole, like, I want to talk about the differences real quick about how we approached.
All right, well, we're skipping favorite things then.
yeah, it's fine because this is my favorite thing.
Yeah,
I don't know if it's yours, but
no, it's fine.
All right. So like, I know I'm a very impatient person, and I will get more impatient the more I feel like time is being wasted. And I noticed that as I was trying to get to the first boss, the moment I have like a standard that's out there in the world, whether it's realistic or not, if somebody has done the first boss on like a certain paradigm, like you beat the first boss the first time you encountered it. I know Greg Miller on Kind of Funny Games had played 7 hours and hadn't beaten the first boss yet. And I was like, okay, so there's somewhere like in this time I need to be as a valid gamer to like meet some stupid standard that means nothing. I need to have this boss done today, like on my first sit down with the game. I need to have the first boss beat, and I couldn't do it. And so I was getting so impatient, and I was just like rushing runs and dying even more and not thinking about what I was doing. I was grabbing all of the parasites. There's a whole like parasite risk reward mechanic in the game where you take on a parasite that gives you a buff at the cost of a debuff, and there are other things that you can pick up that also cause debuffs, and I wasn't thinking about any of that stuff. I was just looting everything, and I was like, I'm just going to go with it and run, and I kept dying so much, and it led to more frustration, and I did not beat the first boss after the first night of playing. I had to revisit after we discovered a little thing we'll talk about later, and that was diametrically opposed foes from how you approached your situation with it. So how did you approach the game?
Yeah, I approached the game much like I would have a Souls-like game, where I was extra cautious to the point of detriment in many cases, because this is a game that's heavily based on movement and constant, and again, my instincts from Souls games are to avoid attacks, where in this game it's much more valuable to dodge into attacks, because there's only like, unless the beam or the ball or the bullet or whatever is purple, you can dodge through almost all other colors of enemy attacks, basically.
Oh, you can't dodge the purple ones?
Purple is the one you can't dodge through. You'll take damage. Everything else that you can dodge through. So noted. Yeah, exactly. Well, so either way, I was playing where I would try to avoid. So I was trying to use my dodge to get away from them, which would often put me in a position where I was getting hit by them. Anyways, it doesn't matter. The bottom line is I tend to play cautiously and stake out my ground. And that's not how you want to engage every encounter. So it's kind of funny. We had the opposite problem. You're like, I'm rushing in there. I'm just getting in there and I'm dying, taking tons of damage. Whereas sometimes that's actually the right strategy. There's many places I've had to adjust and adapt my strategy to do that. We did find a trick that allowed us to, there's basically whenever you pick up health in the game, if you're at full health, it increases your max health. So every single health pickup will boost your max health if you are at max health when you pick it up. But again, the implication is that, sometimes you're going to have to use it to heal yourself. Well, there's a trick where basically you can go to your ship, there's a bed in the ship, you can rest in the ship, and you can get health back. So you can only do that in one of the biomes, though, one of the levels, and but you can do that to stack your health. Basically, you just rest up every time you have damage, and then every health pickup in that zone contributes towards your max health. So you can go into the boss or the next biome with a stacked health bar. And that's actually how I got through 2 bosses when I was having trouble in the second biome. I stacked my health and then I just went in and blasted through the bosses. So
that was the game changer for me. That's how I ended up beating the first boss. Because after I'd learned that trick, I had one run and I beat the boss. Yeah. Like, it was no big deal at all. In fact, it was kind of easy.
Yeah, it is a very heavily RNG. We talked about RNG in our episode about Loot a few weeks ago. And it's a very RNG kind of game because each run has a different set of randomly generated pickups. And some of those pickups might synergize well and you'll have an awesome build and you'll be crushing foes like no problem. And then sometimes you'll just get a really bad set of pickups and stuff like that, and just it won't be able to get anywhere. In fact, I was just fighting the fourth boss today actually, and I just didn't. I had a pretty decent loadout, but I just didn't have what I needed to get across the finish line. So I died and started over, and it's fine. But it is it's very interesting. Kind of how luck comes into play in many of the runs. And so when you said that I beat the boss my first try, that sounds like a super great accomplishment, but it's because I had a lot of things going for my advantage. I had a thing that would basically heal me when I was low on health, so I was able to use that as a stopgap from some moves that would have otherwise killed me. And then I also had an item that basically was a one-time use where when I died, I would come back right there. So I totally died in the third phase of that fight and then came right back up with full health. And I was like, all right, let's finish this. So I still ended that fight, my first try, with like 2% health left. So again, it was not, I'm not some super skilled player. I just got really lucky.
Yeah, and that goes fighting that boss. Even like what I think is unique about this game that I like, and I don't know if other games have this, but there's this resource called Ether that you can collect that does carry over. And there's an obelisk at the very beginning of the game you can spend that ether in, and it gives you a new item you've never had before, but it also adds that to the RNG loop forever. So it's constantly like expanding your loot pool with new augments that will boost your character in unique ways.
Yep, you can do that with the data cubes too, by the way. The data cubes, you can load that, and then they add new items to the pool. And so again, so even though in any given individual run you may just not get good drops, the idea is to get more things added to the pool so that you have a higher chance of getting a killer build. And eventually you'll get a combination of things where you'll be able to blast through the end of the game. And now, do you want a little spoiler to give you hope? It's not really I can avoid making an actual story spoiler, but I can give you an idea as to like...
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, so there are 2 acts in the game. Act 1 is the first 3 bosses. Act 2 is the last 3 bosses. When you get to
there should be an Act 3, I believe.
There's an Act 3, but it's like a post-game thing.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah. You technically beat the final boss. When you fight the final boss, that's the end of Act 2.
Okay.
When you get to the end of Act 1, when you start Act 2, you have a new checkpoint. It's basically a new a new starting point.
Oh,
so the fourth biome is a new starting point, and so you only have to go through basically you only have to go through. I didn't know it either until I got there. And I was like, oh, sweet, this is nice. I load, and you actually load with 15 weapon proficiency too. So you automatically have like level 15 guns to start with, as opposed to level 1. Okay, yeah. So there is again,
so that will get you over the hump of like.
Yeah,
I'm done.
So
I want to finish this game. I see. Okay.
Yeah, so think about it as like you only have to get to you only have to get through the third biome, and then you'll at least have a new starting point.
Yeah,
to
get through
awesome. The next 3. Yeah,
that is hopeful, and I like that a lot. It actually increases my chance that I'll finish the game because I know there's going to be a point where I'm just done and exhausted, and I'm not going to play anymore, and I'll get frustrated and just move on. And that's good. I might actually beat the game. That's great.
Word.
It's really good to know.
Cool. Well, that is all the time we have for any segments. We normally skip DLC in this because this whole episode is kind of a big DLC, and we're skipping favorite things because this was our favorite thing. So I still want to sing the song, though. So
doing this podcast is our favorite thing.
Doing this podcast is our favorite thing in retrospect. Cool. All right. Well, that transitions us nicely into our main topic. We are doing the Wikipedia best games list of all time, and we are starting in 2005. The reason we picked the Wikipedia as a structure for this episode is because they talk about in this article how they have compiled this list based on 50 some. They've updated it since we have started this. By the way, I don't know if you saw that they've added some entries from 2020. So.
Ooh.
Not entries, not new games, but they've added to the publication list that they've pulled from. So they've taken like 50 some lists and they've compiled this based off of each game on this list has appeared on one of these has appeared on 6 of these 50 lists that go all the way back from 1995 all the way to 2020. So it's a really cool kind of encapsulation of what many of these publications, and you recognize some of these names. There's Game Radar, Popular Mechanics, Yahoo, GameSpot. So all of these various publications have posted lists of the best games of all time, and all of the games on this list have appeared on at least 6 of those publications lists. So anyway, so that's where we're at with why we've chosen to do this. So we'll go through each one of the years that we get through, and we'll kind of talk about our thoughts as to whether or not it should be on this list and why we think that's the case. Again, this is not our list. So all of these games, not only are all these games, we're not going to necessarily have a robust knowledge of all these games, but it's also like if your favorite game is not on this list, we didn't put it together. Don't take it up with us.
Yep. And we're not here to bicker about what games are not on the list or should be. Like, we're just talking about what's here. We're not going to talk about things that are not represented and try to add them to the list.
Yep. So if you want to follow along, you can go to wikipedia.org/list of video games considered the best. And just type that in the search bar and you'll find it. So, and you can follow along. If you are driving, then please just focus on the road and listen to our sweet, sweet voices as we talk to you about...
No. If you're driving, pull over on the side of the road and pull up this list and sit and follow along with us.
No, please don't do that. You have places to go. You're important, people to see, things to do, money to make. Go ahead and stick with what you're doing. All right, cool. Last time we left off in 2004, and the last game we talked about that year was World of Warcraft, so I'm sure we had a lot to say back in February on that, but we are starting this year of 2005 off with a game that is widely considered one of the best of all time, which is Civilization 4.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I think I may have played this one. Might have been the first Civilization I ever played. It could have been this or 5. I expected it to be like a real-time strategy game, like like Warcraft or StarCraft or Age of Empires, and it's not that at all.
It's not.
And it's very like country history dialogue based kind of stuff, and it's extraordinarily long. And I was not very interested in this initially, but I was a child, and it was in 2005. I was like out of high school, but not my cup of tea, not at all. But no, I know a lot of people that love this game.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm not a big Civ fan, but similarly, I have a lot of people who love it. So yeah, it was published by 2K Games, I think, and developed by who developed Civ? Fireaxis. That's right. It's Sid Meier. Sid Meier is the name behind it. And yeah, I don't have much to say, but it's popular. I know the entire franchise is popular, so there's plenty of Civs on this list. We've already talked about Civ, haven't we?
I think so. At some point, yes.
Yeah, it's been on this list before. So cool. All right, moving on. The next game is one that we can talk about a lot, which is Devil May Cry 3 Dante's Awakening. So it's the second Devil May Cry rep on this list. I love this game franchise because it totally wasn't conceived of originally as its own thing. It was supposed to be a Resident Evil game in Italy.
It was.
And they just completely made it into an entirely different genre, basically, of hack and slash action games. So, Devil May Cry 3...
Did you play the third one?
This is one of the only ones I haven't played, ironically. I played 1 and 2. I played a little bit of 2. I didn't play all of 2. I played a lot of 1. I played a lot of 4. I've played 5. And I've played the DMC spin-off one or whatever. But I have it. I have a copy of it on my Steam library, I think, but I've never played it. And and part of it is because it was a prequel, and I wasn't into the prequel. But it is actually arguably more well beloved and revered than even Devil May Cry 1. So,
and the difficulty spike is insane, and it's actually, I would put it in the Soulsborne category of difficulty. And awesome. I didn't know that. And when it came out, we were into renting games at the time because we didn't have a lot of extra income to buy games. So I remember renting this and being very excited because we played the crap out of 1 and 2. Like we owned 1 and 2, and I say we because my brother and I both played this. And T-Bone, friend of the show, and we played the mess out of Devil May Cry 2. And we didn't like 2 as much as 1, so 1 really was awesome. But then 3 came out, so we rented it and got all excited about it. And I did nothing but die. Like, I couldn't even get past the first level. And it was extremely frustrating. And so I was like, I'm never playing this again. This is stupid. And thus began the hatred that I have for Soulsborne games.
Well, it's funny because it's not even a Soulsborne, but it was designed at a time when like games were more difficult, like and specifically Capcom games. Like Capcom was From Software before From Software was From Software, and it like I remember just I've played some of these older Capcom games since in my adulthood, including Devil May Cry and some of the earlier Resident Evil games, and they're incredibly challenging because they're really stingy with things like health. And they put you in really intense situations where you're not really sure you're going to get health to make up for it. And so I'm not surprised at all that Devil May Cry 3 back in 2005 was challenging on the level of Souls games. So I want to play it now.
I have a copy on PS2 if you want to get real nostalgic with it.
I've got a copy on Steam. I'm sure I can just fire that up. But it is widely regarded as one of the best Devil May Cry games. A lot of people compare the others to Devil May Cry 3. So cool. The next one, we could also talk a lot about God of War. Oh my gosh. The very first baby God of War. This was one of the few games that drew my attention away from World of Warcraft at the time. And I remember, I don't know if I played it this year. I might have played it like a year later, but I know I got it. And my roommate had a PS2. Yeah. And we got our hands on this game somehow. I don't remember. I think he might have had it and just never played it. And so I was like, well, whatever, I'll fire this up. And I played that. Shout out to Chris. We played this. We ended up playing this game together because I started playing it. And then he would come and watch me and be like, "Wow, this is really interesting. Do you want to take turns playing this game?" And I was like, "Yeah, let's do it." And so we played through the whole game, taking turns, and it was a blast. But it was the first time I'd ever played. Again, I had played hack and slash games before, like Devil May Cry, but this was the first one that had introduced the element of like Zelda almost puzzle solving alongside, unlocking new things to help you solve more puzzles, but also do combat better or differently. And it was new play styles and stuff like that. And I adored this game. It was a blast. So yes, God of War deserves to be on this list. It had
the same fast-paced action that Devil May Cry had, with a more linear platforming bend and focus. It also had adult content, which at the time, fresh out of high school, college, hormones were like, and like it was super macho, like to its fault, like toxic masculinity around, rage inducing. I'm sorry, like the main character was like just rage and big muscle, like anger and anyway, so all that
I want to kill. It was a revenge story. I want to get revenge. It was one of the first games though that really like utilized Greek mythology in a way that was mainstream. Before, because now there's Greek games aplenty. It was the hot thing, and we've moved on to now we're all about Norse mythology and video gaming, including God of War. But it was really doing the idea of like, let's play with Greek mythology because it's cool and fun and awesome and has heroes and magic, but it's also public domain, so we don't have to pay anyone for it. So it was cool that they took liberties with that at the time. Was kind of new. So cool. All right, next is Guitar Hero. I've even played Guitar Hero. It was one of the first rhythm games that I've ever played. Was it the first rhythm game here on the list? I think so.
Was Dance Dance Revolution on here before?
I don't think so, although there's no reason why it shouldn't have been. But nevertheless,
Dance Dance Revolution is on our list from 1998. Sorry, I had to interrupt to represent the best rhythm game, Dance Dance Revolution.
You are weirdly good at Dance Dance Revolution, and that is something that our listeners need to know about you. He is... I didn't know this until we went to like one of those barcades and we watched him for like a good like 34 minutes or something like that. I was like, wow.
And I was like super rusty and not that great in my mind, but you guys were all like, oh wow.
We're all about it. So but Guitar Hero, this was like kind of one of the innovations of, we'd all seen Dance Dance Revolution at this point, but we'd not seen it with a guitar. So it was published by Red Octane, developed by whom? Harmonix.
Yeah, I thought there was a T not Harmonix. Red Octane. No, Harmonix is a rock band. Guitar Hero is Neversoft, I believe.
It says Harmonix right here.
It does.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's something we have to go and talk about, because Harmonix definitely made Rock Band, and Activision and Neversoft took over Guitar Hero. So there's a whole thing. That's a different topic. So Guitar Hero. Yes. Red Octane made the controllers. They made dance pads for Dance Dance Revolution. But also Guitar Hero was kind of what the Wii was later. Now in this era, before the Wii was a thing, Guitar Hero took over the living rooms of everyone, non-gamers and gamers alike, and it was the best party game ever. It was at my parents' It was at my uncle's place. Like, we got together with friends and played it for hours and hours, trying to figure out how to get to hard mode and like use the 5th button on the guitar. And it wasn't there South Park episodes about it? Like,
I think
it was
Yeah,
it was such a cultural phenomenon. Yeah,
totally. Because
I remember the kid that was carrying around the guitar in his backpack, and like he would pull it out and it's so funny. But yeah, this is like a major cultural hype moment, was Guitar Hero for sure.
Cool. Next is Psychonauts, and this game was always around me, but I never encountered it. I never played it.
Tim Schafer, the developer, or I guess the director and the writer. Yeah, Double Fine now, of course, he's in the limelight because Psychonauts 2 and Double Fine joining Microsoft. So they're still making headlines even now. But this game came out on the list. It's for PC, but it's also on Xbox, PS2. Yeah, like you said, it's always around, but never I never played it. But it's a platform game.
Platform, yep.
It has like cartoony-ish graphics, but it's a more of adult teen, like serious kind of theme to it, and I don't really know a whole lot about it other than it's like psychic abilities. And
that's about all I know about it too. So apparently, it was considered a commercial failure when it started, but it got a cult following, which has led to its beloved following to the point where it's on this list. So it's got a cult following. We got to take the plunge, figure out if we can get our hands on it and get into it. So. All right, cool. Next on the list, Resident Evil 4, widely considered the best Resident Evil game of all time by many people, originally for the GameCube, which I take as a point of pride as a Nintendo fan.
Yes.
But developed by Capcom and published by them as well. And Resident Evil 4, let's get it. Let's talk about it.
So yeah, when this game first came out, my favorite Resident Evil still is Resident Evil 2, and I played it on the PlayStation, and I also have the N64 port, and I played it there as well. I loved Resident Evil 2. 3, I did not like Nemesis, and so I kind of fell away. 4 came out, and I had zero interest in this game. I saw like screenshots and gameplay of like big tentacles coming out of people, and like at the first level is all just like people. They weren't zombies, they were just people. And I was like, why are these people coming after me with forks and shovels and throwing axes at me? And it was third person over the shoulder. I didn't have tank controls, I don't think. It kind of did.
No, it was the first one that had I thought it was the first one that had the twin sticks. You look with one stick and then you move with the other. Or am I crazy?
Yes, you do use the C. I'm playing it now. I should know this. And I'm like now trying to think about like how I'm playing it because it's so natural. It's fine. I think, you're aiming with the C stick.
Yeah, but it was the first like dynamic camera.
Yep, yeah. And it was, of course, it was fully 3D rendered as well. Yeah, there was no pre-rendered visuals, and the camera was free range over the shoulder. But anyway, so I hated this game. I did not like it at all. Fast forward to now, and as an adult, I absolutely love this game.
It's modern game design. It was like the first of its kind, one of the first of its kind in regards to third-person shooters, and totally is, and its atmosphere, the fact you're playing as Leon, a fan favorite, not Chris Redfield, who is pretty much more consistently apparent, like. And it's just got that vibe of like, I mean, you can see the fact that Village very much takes its inspiration from what they did with Resident Evil 4. So it's really informed the genre, and I cannot wait for them. Apparently there's rumors of them doing a remake of it, and I'm here for it because I never played it. I never got to touch it. I too was just kind of like, meh, another Resident Evil game for the GameCube at the time. But this is one that I regret missing because, again, it's widely considered one of the best.
I chased it down. I went on eBay because of the hype from Resident Evil 8, and I was like, you know what? I'm taking the plunge on 4. I've never played it, and I know so many people love it, so it has to be beloved in some way. So I picked it up on GameCube. I'm playing it. Like I said, I played it like last week. I should know how this game plays. And I'm like 5 hours into it, and I love it. So I try to take some time on the side. I mean, 5 hours over the course of like 2-3 months. I think I bought it back in January. Yeah. So it's like really on the back burner, but I am playing it, and I'm loving it.
Word. All right, cool. Moving along, we've got Shadow of the Colossus this year. Great year. Shadow of the Colossus. This is another one that I missed, but I've experienced since I've experienced the remake, and it's fascinating. It's a fascinating game. I really want to go back and beat it. But yeah, it was very unique for the time. It had very much of that like God of War scope. Where you have these massive things that you're fighting, but the entire game was just you running to a Colossus, a boss, and then fighting it. It was entirely just boss battles, but it had lots of platforming elements too. the bosses themselves are platforms that you have to climb and grab onto and stuff like that, which adds a really cool element to it.
Mm-hmm.
Crazy that this game was on the PS2. I played the remake and I'm sitting there playing it and I'm like, how did this game run on the PS2? But it did, which is a marvel as far as I'm concerned.
It was very late in the PS2's life cycle. It came out in 2005. The PS3 came out the year after, 2006.
Yeah.
So it was one of those like late PS2 games when they had optimized to make the emotion engine processor like do their thing.
Yep.
So I can see why it did that. It was actually developed by Japan Studio, which is now mostly dissolved, and Team Ico being the smaller team around it. But yeah, huge, big, massive set pieces, awesome art, like big artsy game, like before artsy games were a thing.
Games, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, setting kind of a foundation almost for like Journey and Flower and Flow and more of those kinds of games that we see now that are a much smaller scale than this, because this is a full-blown title.
Yeah.
And yeah, just the scale, unprecedented scale of like huge monsters that are actually entire levels. Just
big monster,
like,
big
climb.
world, yeah. And it's like it's got a really interesting setting too. It being in kind of a like the what do you call it? The architecture and everything is very, and the clothing is very Incan or Aztec. Yeah. It's very like ancient Southern American. Middle and Southern American, Central and Southern American architecture, which is again another area, another flavor you don't really see a lot in video games. So, was remade by Blue Point in 2011, and for the PlayStation 3, and the remake is the only one I've played, but it's really interesting, really fun game. So
there, you read that there's a remastered version that came out with HD upscaling and stuff. The complete remake was made in 2018.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Yeah.
Blue Point was apparently
2011 doesn't
both.
feel very far away, but it was 10 years ago. And
yeah.
2011 was the PlayStation 3 HD upres.
Gotcha,
2018, which was 3 years ago, or 3 years ago, was when this game came out for PS4.
Understood. Cool.
Yep.
All right. And that's the one I played. I played the full remake. Yep. Cool.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And then 2005 also would see Tom Clancy's Splinter Cell Chaos Theory, which I am rolling my eyes at personally. But for those who love Tom Clancy and Splinter Cell, more power to you. Anything with Tom Clancy's name attached to it, I roll my eyes on. I don't know why. I'm like, the man has made a career of making, and for Tom Clancy fans out there, come prove me wrong. Tell me I'm wrong, but I'm right now I'm the meme of the guy sitting with his legs crossed saying, prove me wrong or whatever. and I feel like Tom Clancy has made an entire career out of just the same like 5 stories about spies and military folk. And the same is true with these games.
I know like all of the books are like military thrillers, but all the games kind of have the same feel as far as like realistic and military special forces type stuff. I got into Rainbow Six for a while and I loved The Division, but for some reason Splinter Cell I want to play more now as an adult. I say as an adult. I was an adult when the first ones came out, but I was like right out of high school. I was like a 18-year-old adult. So I didn't like the original Splinter Cell, but wanted to desperately because of my love for Metal Gear Solid. And this is Chaos Theory. It's the third one in the entry of the whole Splinter Cell saga so far. It came out on PS2 and Xbox, and I never played this one at all. I've never set my sticks on it, my thumbs on those sticks, but I want to play them all. So at some point in my video game collection building life, I will track down. There's a Splinter Cell Trilogy for PS3 that came out in 2010 and it has like HD upres graphics and stuff. I might try to track that down, but they're not cheap because old games are getting more expensive, so it's getting harder and harder to justify the cost. But yeah, this is like very much stealth, slow, methodical thinking, very Hitman-esque, military. Sam Fisher, he's the iconic night vision goggles. Boy! That's the thing. Yeah, so that's Chaos Theory. Cool. There we go. We can move on.
Yep. Next game I'm not super familiar with, Company of Heroes.
Wait, we're in 2006 now. We're New Year.
Yeah, sorry, New Year. We're in 2006. Yep. So, Company of Heroes, real-time strategy game published by THQ, developed by Relic Entertainment, and it looks just like Call of Duty. So,
it's StarCraft and Warcraft, but World War II.
Okay, and so Call of Duty real-time strategy.
I guess, but like you upgrade troops, you build buildings and tanks and things. I played this when it first came out, and it was a lot of fun. And I remember it was on one of those Steam things, like I probably got it cheap. I have like the whole library now, and I've only ever played the first one.
It's got incredible reviews, not gonna lie.
Yeah, it's really solid. It's very polished. It's very good. And I never got into the online aspect of this because I don't do online real-time strategy games. I just don't. I don't play those.
Yeah, no.
I played the story mode, and I don't remember anything about the story because it's been too long, and I only dabbled in it for maybe 10 to 15 hours, and then bounced onto something else. And I highly recommend it. If you like World War II and you like StarCraft, go play it.
Cool. Next one is another Elder Scrolls game. We've talked about Morrowind, and now we can talk about Oblivion.
The very first game on this list in the next generation, the HD era. This is the first Xbox 360, PS3 title on the list.
Yeah.
Right here.
And if you look at it by today's standards, it looks like complete trash.
But when it came out, it looked gorgeous.
It did.
It looked amazing when it first came out.
Huge open world, crazy leveling systems, and how you basically be able to level up your spells by using your abilities and your spells by using them, which
I hated, but
kind
it was legendary.
Of innovative at the time, and but it was hateable but also exploitable. Like basically you could again, all you had to do is use it. You could jump and just make your character jump for hours, and then eventually be able to jump over buildings, and it's ridiculous.
Yep,
it's a crazy game. That's very little I know about it, but it was everyone was talking about Oblivion, so much so that by the time Skyrim came around, I was like, well, I've got to try Skyrim out because I've had so many people talking about Oblivion for the past 5 years. Mm-hmm. But made by Bethesda, obviously, and for the PC and Xbox 360. Was it not a PlayStation? Did that come on? It
came out to PS3 later, but I guess for the purposes of 2006 on this list, it was not. The PS3 port was buggy, and the performance was bad, and so on and so forth.
Cool. All right, next game, Gears of War, third-person shooter, one of the first, memory serves, it was one of the first cover-based shooters, I think. It might have started that genre, the idea of cover-based shooters where you don't have a jump button, you're encouraged to take cover and shoot when you have opportunities. But, developed by Microsoft Game Studios, and was an Xbox 360 exclusive.
Yes, it was, and it was almost a launch title. And it completely sold me on the 360. There was a lot of other launch titles around, and they were all cool. It was a new generation of consoles, and it was awesome HD. But Gears of War looked absolutely incredible. It had a solid frame rate. It performed really well. But now we're in that era of gaming where everything is gray. I just wanted to call that out. Oblivion, gray. Gears of War,
Gears
gray.
of War. When you think of gaming when everything is gray and green, it's Gears of War is the first game that comes to mind. And
even going back to Resident Evil 4, Shadows of Colossus, Splinter Cell, all these games we just talked about, they're all gray.
Yeah.
Even God of War, except for his Chaos Blades, is pretty gray.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So this is that teenage angst era of gaming that we talk about, and Gears of War is almost the epitome of it.
Yep, totally.
It's big macho men, grungy, grunting and yelling and running around, and everything's
people always talk
up.
about the unrealistic proportions of women in video games, and granted that's a problem, and
that's valid.
It's not only is it a valid thing, it is way more prolific than unrealistic male proportions. But when I think of unrealistic male proportions, Gears of War comes to mind of men with tree trunks for arms and shoulders. It's just have to hover over the tooltip here, and I see just insane human beings, insanely rendered human beings.
I mean, what more do you want with a gun that's fully automatic with a chainsaw
on the front
at the tip that you can just rip through enemies with.
That's all you need to say. Gears of War is a game that features a military man with a gun that has a chainsaw on the front. That's this entire era of gaming in a nutshell.
But it's super serious.
Yeah.
This isn't
no, it's not
what's that movie with the boomstick? Dang it.
Army of Darkness.
Bruce Campbell.
It's not a parody,
not campy like that. Yeah, this is totally serious.
Yeah, it takes itself seriously. I love it. My experience with Gears of War is my buddy Justin and I, shout out Justin, we were looking for a game to replace Halo 2 because we played Halo 2 together co-op and adored the entire Halo franchise. So he grabbed Gears of War, we played it, he loved it, I did not. I was like, this is not Halo, I don't love it. So this
is the only Halo competitor that existed. That's what was known for. Everyone who loved Halo just jumped onto this until Halo 3 came out.
For sure. Cool. All right, next is from Eidos, published by Eidos and developed by them as well.
I do believe it's Eidos.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Eidos Interactive. Was Hitman Blood Money, and I totally read that as Hitman Blood Monkey.
Wow.
Until literally 3 seconds before I read it. So, Hitman Blood Money. I like Blood Monkey better, personally. Blood Monkey
nice. It was actually developed by IO Interactive. It was published by Eidos.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and IO Interactive still has the rights to Hitman even today. The newest one that just came out is still them. But Yeah, is this the first one? Blood Money, was that? Or
No, I don't
is
think
this a
so.
sequel?
I think we had Hitman on this list earlier somewhere, but
Right, yeah, this is on the next. This is a cross-platform title. It came out on PS2, Xbox 360, and PS3. It's the fourth game. I was way off. Blood Money's the fourth game, so it must be really good because the fourth one in the series made 2006's list of best video games of all time. I have not played a single Hitman game. Same reason I didn't like. They didn't jive with me was the same reason why Splinter Cell didn't. Is that they're too slow and too methodical, and you have to plan ahead. And there's a million different ways to attack your you're assassinating a person, a target, and you have to navigate through a level, whether it be a giant party or a cruise boat or something, to like get to that person. There's all kind of ways you can do it. Poisoning folks, like all kind of stuff. Yeah, so it's just very stealthy and lots of disguises and camouflage and such. Not really my thing.
Cool. The next game is a game that I'm just so depressed that I missed out on because this game is so totally right up my alley. It's super artsy, and it's the main character is a freaking wolf. Who doesn't want to play as a wolf? Mm-hmm. It is Okami, developed by Capcom game for the PlayStation 2. I've heard Okami as a pull. People want Okami to be playable in Smash. Yeah. Which I think would be great, just with what this game looks like. But yeah,
there was a port for the Wii, which would put it in that Nintendo world. Like, it's not a PS2 exclusive. It was at launch, but not later. Mm-hmm. Anyway. Yep.
This was directed by Hideki Kamiya, who would go on to found Platinum Games and make amazing games with Platinum. But yeah, so this is this is before he left Capcom. But it's an action-adventure game. Like I said, you play as this very artistically rendered wolf, and yeah, it's very well received, and I'm sad I missed out on. I would love like a remake of some kind.
Yeah, something like to bring that game forward. It's pretty cheap. Like it's less than $20. I might have to pick up a copy at some point for PlayStation 2 and experience it the way it was when it was launched.
Yeah, and correction, the character's name is Amaterasu, is the name of the wolf that you play as.
Nice.
The name is and like it's cell shaded, and that's it looks beautiful. It's like a gorgeous game, especially again very colorful and vibrant and stylized in a year where games were not that, where games were more like Gears of War. So pretty cool. All right, moving on from Okami, we've got Wii Sports to round out this year.
This is the first Wii game on the list.
Yeah.
Which makes sense. November 2006 was when the Wii came out.
And this game sort of epitomized what the Wii was.
Yes.
as much as we would have liked to believe that games like Skyward Sword and Twilight Princess and Mario Galaxy were what the Wii was all about. No, the Wii Sports was the Wii for all intents and purposes.
Yes, it was, and it really nailed the vision that Nintendo had with the Wii and what it was. Here's a Wii remote. It is a remote that lives next to your TV. The Wii is a console that's connected to the internet all the time. It had like news and weather, and you just turned it on as you would walk by it because it was so easy to turn on, but it was so attractive to grandparents and adults and kids across all generations. Everyone got together to play Wii Sports. I know I did at many family occasions.
Oh, yeah, totally.
This is kind of like what Guitar Hero started, but even more, because Guitar Hero was like rock and roll, which can be a turnoff to some folks. Wii Sports was super inclusive. Everyone was in it. Bowling, golf, tennis, boxing. Like, it was awesome. And it's still, even now, it's timeless. It's a blast to pick up and go like mess around with it with friends.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. Like, I mean, it is one of the examples of how like this era of gaming, was in many ways about, even just these 2 years were about emergent gameplay. And we'll talk about that a little bit more when we break down the trends. But like, yeah, it doesn't really get much more experimental and emergent than Wii Sports. As crazy as that sounds, like, I mean, legitimately, like, this was the precursor to what we're seeing with VR, because motion capture is such an important part of VR. And yeah, I mean, this is the foundation of it, and started with what Nintendo decided to experiment with the Wii and say, hey, look, y'all, we're doing something completely different.
Yep. And
Wii Sports just epitomizes that. So simulating real life with the video games was pretty crazy.
In a fun and meaningful way.
Exactly. Yep. And like you said, it pushed so much hardware. It pushed hardware. It pushed software. The Wii was very much a staple of like middle class American households of that year. And it was thanks to, in part, to games like Wii Sports that were actually taking advantage of what the console was capable of. So cool. All right. Well, we'd be remiss if we did not take the opportunity. We there's no way we can jump into 2007. That's a big year. So next time we'll have to hit 2007, 2008. And
Yay.
We talked a lot about Returnal, which is fair because it just came out and we're excited about it. So
yeah,
that kind of ate up a lot of our time that we normally would have tried to allot to this topic. So we only got through 2 years again, predictable us, but let's go ahead and end there with this entire topic. This entire series of podcast episodes has been about biting off more than we can chew, and we continue to do so to tradition. But we do like to take some opportunity at the end to kind of break down some of the trends we've seen in this couple of years. So what do you think is remarkable about the 2005 2006 era of gaming based on these couple of years?
Well, we saw the transition to a new generation of consoles in 2006. That's kind of obvious. We talked about how this was like the grungy teenage, everything's gray and emotion invoking kind of like dark and gritty era of games. But also I want to note that PlayStation 2 dominated half of these games. There was 14 total that we talked about, and 7 of them were on PlayStation 2. Yes, some of them were third party, and so like Splinter Cell and Hitman were on everything, but PlayStation 2 destroyed. And that was the end of the life cycle. So it continued to just dominate. God of War, Devil May Cry 3, Shadow of Colossus, Okami. There's just like all over the place. Sony's crushing. And then, yeah, you talked about how gaming is taking the idea of immersion gaming, but also expanding the audience. We're seeing kids that grew up in the 90s now are hitting their 20s, going into gaming and still like carrying that with them. And so games have matured both in the dark and gritty way with them, but also the industry has evolved to such that we want to include grandparents and parents now. And so they're trying to do things like Guitar Hero and Wii Sports, which are really the first living room experiences across generations that people were having in a mainstream way.
Yeah, totally.
Those are my observations on those 2 years.
Well, yeah,
it's a big 2 years.
Yeah, and to piggyback on the idea of what you just talked about, like I was saying, those 2 games kind of represent what I was talking about with emergent gameplay. This idea that like entirely new ways to interact with the idea of games. Never before had there been some crazy, weird, or not since the like trackpad and DDR. Had there been a controller like Guitar Hero where you had to buy an entirely new accessory just to play the game. You couldn't just play with your controller. And similarly with the Wii, it's like even though it came with the console, it was the console, but it was entirely new. It was something that, tried and true age-old gamers had to also kind of learn from scratch how to control and how to get behind. It didn't work perfectly at the time, but it was experimental. It was new. You don't really see, the fact that these games, what's interesting is not necessarily that these games were like the brand new uses of these kinds of concepts, but the fact that they are, these kinds of concepts are making their way into what are considered the best video games of all time. It just goes to show how successful these concepts were percolating at this time and innovating at this time. Mm-hmm. So I think that's kind of, these 2 years are pretty definitive, even though they were, numerically going through the list. It wasn't that many best games of all time on this list. Quality over quantity, they have a lot of bang for their buck in regards to just what was happening in the gaming landscape of this period. So probably with some of the most unique entries at all in this entire list up to this point. So yeah,
I mean, if you just look at the list of the 14 titles, they stretch across a bunch of different genres. Like not one thing dominated more than the other. We have turn-based strategy, action adventure, rhythm, platform, survival, horror, stealth, role-playing, third-person shooter, sports. Like it was just kind of a random mix of genres. We were just jumping all over the place, and they all like hit really, really well. So it's good. Like you can really see the expansion of gaming into mainstream culture happening right here in 2005, 2006.
Yep. Sweet. Awesome. Well, that is our show. We want to hear what your thoughts are on the list in general, but also these 2 particular years, 2005, 2006. Do you agree that these games should be on the list? Are there any that we did not do justice in our breakdown of? Do you want to prove Penguin wrong about Splinter Cell and Tom Clancy in general? Then we want to hear all those thoughts and more. I will admit Tom Clancy has sold more books than I have. So
you can't deny that.
I cannot deny that fact. I will willingly accept that fact. So feel free to point that out to myself and other thoughts that you may have. Termite will tell you where you can do that.
Once again, you can find us at 80bitpodsmash.com. That's our landing website, 80bitpodsmash.com. That's our landing site. It has links to all of our podcast platforms, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts, and all the other ones you want. Our RSS feed is there. You can throw us into any third-party app you would like. It also has links to all of our social media outlets, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Reddit. Yes, we have a subreddit that belongs to our community. You guys and gals can create your own topics, and you can discuss amongst yourselves these things. Give us your thoughts, comments, questions, concerns, and ideas. Give us topic ideas, things you want to hear about, stuff you want to see. And you can also find a Discord server. There's a link to all of those there's one server. There's a link to our one server in all of our episodes in the show notes. You can click that as well and interact with us in a more live manner. And you can find us on twitch.tv/80bitpodsmash, where we have a live news show every Monday, and we have a live gameplay every Wednesday, and both time slots are at 8 p.m. So 8 p.m. Eastern on Mondays and Wednesdays. Go to twitch.tv/80bitpodsmash. Subscribe to us there so you can be made aware when we're live. We do announce our gameplay live streams on social medias, so make sure you are following us on those so you can be up to date, catching and keeping up with us wherever we go. I think that is the spiel.
Nice. Awesome. Next week, we are going to be talking about the weather. I mean that seriously. We're going to be talking about simulated weather in video games and what that looks like. Is it overhyped, or is it revolutionary emerging gameplay, or immersive?
It's going to be a good topic.
I think it'll be a fun one. Yeah, it'll be an interesting one. So, come join us next week on May 24th to just talk about the weather.
Nice.
All right, we'll see you next week.
We'll see you next week.